Good morning and welcome to Thursday's Maths. So, slight change of plan from what I told you on Monday. We are going to do decimals today and we're going to look at all the four operations. So we're going to do adding, subtracting, dividing and multiplying decimals because I think we'll be absolutely fine with this, okay? This is just rewinding over things we've already done. I think you'll find today quite easy. And then tomorrow, then we're going to go into our Power Maths books and we're going to do problem solving. So next week we can move on to a different topic because you've been doing so well with all your work. There's no point dragging this out for more time than you need on it. Okay, let's get started. Here is my first problem for you for today. Pause the video and have a go. So, looking at this problem, lots of people might have done something that looks a bit like this. Convince me, where would this person have gone wrong? Well, this person has completely forgotten their decimal place value. They've got 8/10 lined up with 2/100ths. They've got 3/10 and 0 ones, and they've got 1 1 with 1/10. So this is not lined up properly, okay? It's not got the right place value in the right place. Now, the easiest way to do this is to put your decimal points in so they are lined up. So I've got 10.8. So the 8's in the 10ths column, as is the 3. I've got no 1s and I've got 110, and I'm adding them together. Second mistake some people might make is they might get to this point and then think, oh, well, I can't do it because I've got 2/100ths add, well, a gap. So maybe I need to just put a number in here. There is a number you can put in here, but it's a number that doesn't change the sum. If you put a 0 in here, this tells me there is no hundredths. This does not change this number whatsoever. Now I can do 2/100ths add no hundredths is 2/100ths. 3/10 add 8/10 is 11/10. So if I've got 11/10, I leave the 1/10 and I rename the 10/10, because as we know, 10/10 is the same as a whole. So that means I can rename those 10/10 as one whole and put it in the ones column. I'm also not going to forget my decimal point, something else that people do. So now I've got 1 whole, add no wholes, add 1 whole is 2 wholes. I've got 1/10, add no tenths, I've got 1/10. So hopefully your answer was 12.12. Okay, here's my second problem for us to have a go at. Pause the video, have a go, and remember to line up your decimal places correctly. So I've got 17.1. I'm going to put my decimal point in first, and then I'm going to write the numbers. There's my 10ths column, there's my hundredths column. And this time I am subtracting, not adding. Don't make that mistake. Right, again, here I've got a gap. So some people might panic and think, oh, I just can't do this sum. Yes, you can. What number can you put in that doesn't change it? A 0. Okay, so now I've got 0 hundredths in that column and I'm showing that with that 0. It does not change my number. And now I just take away like normal. 0 take away 4. I can't do it. If I had no sweets, I couldn't take away 4. So I go next door, I take that 1/10, so now I've got 0, and I take this 1/10 and I rename it as 10/100ths. I'm going to put a 1 there to make the number 10, so now I've got 10/100ths. 10 take away 4 would be 6/100ths. 0/10 take away 9. Well, I can't do that, so I'm going to go into the ones column. I'm going to rename that as 6 ones, and I'm going to rename that 1 as 10/10 because 10/10 makes 1 whole. We know that. So then 10 take away 9 would be 1. Don't forget my decimal point. 6 ones take away 3 ones is 3. 1/10 take away nothing would be 1/10, and there would be my answer. Right, pause the video and have a go at these 3 questions. Right, answer time. Hopefully you got the same answer as me. So I've lined them up. I've made sure I've got my decimal place lined up with the next decimal place. So I've got all my place value in the right places. I've then added 2 zeros after the 9/10 just to make it easier for me to visualize that there is nothing in that hundredths column and nothing in that thousandths column. So 0 thousandths add 2 thousandths is 2 thousandths. 0 hundredths add 1 hundredth is 1 hundredth. 9/10 add 7/10 would be 16/10. So in this case, I've got to leave that 6/10 in the 10ths column and I rename that 10/10 as 1 whole. So then I've got 3 ones, add 4 ones, add 1 1, which would be 8 ones. So my answer would be 8.612. Well done if you got that right. Answer time for the second one. This one's a little bit trickier, so I'm going to talk you through this one. So I've lined it up, making sure I've got all my decimals in the right column. I've added a 0 here because it does not change my number. No hundredths take away 5 hundredths. I can't do that. So we need to go next door. I'm going to take one of those tenths and I'm going to rename it as 10 hundredths. 10 hundredths take away 5 hundredths is 5. 3 tenths take away 8 tenths. I can't do that. So again, I'm going to have to rename. So I rename that 1 as 10 tenths and I've got 13 tenths. 13 take away 8. 13 take away 8 is 5. Don't forget my decimal point. 1 whole take away 3. Can't do that. So I'm going to have to take that tenth, rename it as 10 ones. 11 take away 3 is 8. So your answer should be 8.55. And here's your answer for the third one. Hopefully you got this right. So again, I've put a 0 in next to the 4 tenths. I can't do 0 take away 2. So I go next door, I rename one of the tenths and make that 3 tenths. And now I've got 10 hundredths. 10 take away 2 is 8. 3 take away 1 is 2. 6 take away 1 is 5. And 1 take away 1 is 0. So it should be 5.28. You don't need that 0 in the tens column, but you can have it because it doesn't change that number. It doesn't matter. Right, we're now going to move on to multiplying decimals, which just the same as addition and subtraction is the same method that we use for whole numbers. You've just got that decimal place there. So 13.4 times by 6. So I'm going to do column method, column multiplication like I normally would. Now, if you were doing this really properly, your 6 should go in your ones column here because that's the place value. However, it doesn't matter for this. If you want to have it on this right hand side because it just looks nicer and it helps you think about that's how you normally do column method, that is fine. Okay, I don't mind. It's completely up to you. Right, you've got a couple of different ways of doing this now. What you can do is you can get rid of that decimal point by multiplying that number by 10, and then at the end you can then divide that number by 10. Or you can just treat this exactly as you would a normal multiplication, but just put that decimal point in down the bottom. Okay, you'll get the same answer either way. If you decide to times by 10 and then divide by 10 at the end, just remember to divide by 10 because otherwise you're going to get an answer that's too big. So 6 times 4 is 24. So I'm going to leave the 4 in the tenths column. And then I'm going to rename those 20 tenths as 2 ones. Can you see that this is exactly the same as if I covered that decimal point up and did 6 times 4, I would put a 4 in this column and I would rename a 2. It's exactly the same, apart from you've just got that decimal point there. Then I would do 6 times 3 is 18, add 2 more, that would be 20. So I put a 0 here and I rename those 2 tens. 6 times 1 is 6, add 2 is 8. This would be 80.4. If you did this without the decimal point and did 4 times 6 is 24, 6 times 3 is 18, add 2 is 20, 6 times 1 is 6, add 2 would be 8. Hopefully you can see it's exactly the same numbers. I times it by 10 to get rid of that decimal point. So now I need to divide this number by 10. Exactly the same answer. Okay, so for this second one, again, I've written it into column method. Again, I've put this 5 on the right hand side because I just prefer it there. For me, that just helps me to remember this is what I'm multiplying and it's the same as if I'm doing normal column method. Now, if you want to do the method where you do it as a whole number, this time, because you've got 2 decimal places, you're going to have to times this number by 100 to make it a whole number, and then at the end divide it by 100. You can do that method, that's absolutely fine. For me, I'm not going to, because the easiest way to do this, where you're going to make you're least likely to make a mistake, is to put your decimal point in straight away. Treat this like a normal column method. That's probably the easiest way for you to do this. So 5 times 7 is 35. So I leave my 5 in the hundredths column and I rename those 30 hundredths as 3 tenths. 5 times 4 is 20. Add my 3, 23. So I rename those 20 tenths as 2 ones. 5 times 3 is 15. Add 2 is 17. Rename. 5 times 1 is 5. Add 1 is 6. 67.35. Right, we're now moving on to division. 12.4 divided by 2. Now, this is a nice easy one, so you could do this mentally. But for dividing decimals, we're going to use bus stop method, just like we would if we were dividing normally. And it's the same method, apart from you've got your decimal point. You can either put your decimal point up here to begin with if it's going to help you. That's absolutely fine. Can you divide 1 by 2? If you had 1 sweet, could you divide it by 2? No, you could not. So we'll rename it. Can you divide 12 by 2? Yes, 12 divided by 2 would be 6. Cross it out. Can you do 4 divided by 2? Yes, the answer would be 2. So your answer to this would be 6.2. Nice and easy. Well done for today. You've done really, really well. So your challenge now is Hegarty Maths. You can either do addition and subtraction of decimals if that's what you think you need practice on. That's number 47. If you want to practice multiplying decimals, that's 48. And if you want to have a go at dividing decimals, that's 49. If you want to do more than one, amazing. If you want to do all three, absolutely incredible. There will be dojos available for each and every one. So have a go, show me your work. See you tomorrow.